Welcome back to Aurora C-Sharp Shattered Empire, my new series centering around the Confederate Remnant with a heavy RP focus utilizing viewer interaction and participation, as well as highly edited content to bring you as high quality of a series as possible. Now, today, as part of episode 0, we will be going over the game setup, from the strategic and political situation of the Confederate Remnant, to the industry, economy, and finally military. I will also be detailing and talking about how you guys can participate in the series and even get to play in the very same save game. And on that note, why don't we answer the question I'm sure many of you are asking yourselves, what is Shattered Empire? Aurora C-Sharp Shattered Empire is an extremely ambitious project, combining many elements that the community loves into one to create an experience that everyone can enjoy. These elements are heavy roleplay with a true system of government and meaningful interactions, an organic story with progression from older works, a focus on high-quality videos utilizing animation, graphics, and more. After action-like reports on combat and military engagements emphasizing tactics utilizing the aforementioned tools, and finally consistency to package all of these elements within. So whether it be your interest in political intrigue and role-playing with fellow viewers, or just watching high-quality content and edited content with an organic story, if you like Aurora, you should find something you will enjoy from this series. You may now ask, how do you actually participate? Well, there are a few ways in which you can do so. First, it is important that you're on the Discord, as that is where voting is done, speeches, Senate meetings, information on the series, and much more. Now, from this point, you have two options. Either enter more heavily in roleplay and try to become a senator through election, or if you are a YouTube member, then automatically. And at that point, you should then read the Constitution, which is a set of guidelines and rules relating to the roleplay aspect and is heavily based off the Roman Republic. If you decide you do not want to be a senator but still want to participate, you can instead create a character within the universe and roleplay however you like, within reason of course. Finally, there is one last option, where you can participate in a way, and that is the scenario itself. First, in Aurora C-Sharp's history, and possibly Aurora's history as a whole, this series will be using a pre-made scenario with a pre-made galaxy and unique threats that I have set up within that galaxy. It gives you a unique starting position from which you can play the game with no setup of your own required, and I will be making this available to everyone so you too can play along if you so choose. Now, if you have watched the prologue, then you will know who the Confederate Remnants are. But suffices to say, they are the faction we will be playing in the series, with the goal to reunite humanity after the disasters of the last 15 years. In this chapter, I'll be going over the situation we find ourselves in, and kind of talking about the game setup from a mechanical perspective as well as pointing out interesting facts. The strategic and political situation. Now, the first thing we need to look at is that situation. Our faction is in. On your screen, you'll see the system map, and as you can see, there's quite a bit to go over, so let's get right into it. Welcome to Alpha Centauri. Alpha Centauri is a binary star system, with Alpha Centauri A, the first star, and Alpha Centauri B, the second star. Currently, the only known factions inhabit around the second star, with the original homeworld of the original Confederation, New Solaris, in control of the Confederate Remnant in red, as you can see here, and the Ares Technocracy in yellow. There are significant distances as well between these two stars, about 2.2 billion kilometers along the Interstar Highway, and currently the Confederate Remnant does not really understand or know anything that's happening in Alpha Centauri A besides the pre-war records. Now, if we move over to Alpha Centauri A, we can kind of discuss the current situation there, and what we do and what we don't know, as well as the planets of vital interest to the Confederate Remnant that could potentially be recaptured or reunited. So, as we zoom in here, we can have a look. Vulcan. Vulcan was a vital planet in terms of mining in the pre-Confederation, generally considered pretty inhospitable. No humans generally mine there, but automated mining systems may still be active, though we do not currently know of any information regarding such. Then we look at Apollo. Apollo was one of two colonies within the first star, and was considered one of the biggest colonies within the entire system. It's possible that there are still Confederate soldiers and people living there, but we have lost contact with them ever since the aliens left after 2165. Then we have New Venus. New Venus, like its namesake, Venus, is an inhospitable planet, but has access to certain mineral reserves that could potentially be useful to us. Then Diana, the second colony within the Alpha Centauri A system. This planet was less colonized than Apollo, but still retained a large population, and like Apollo, it's still possible that there are people living there, hopefully, that we can reunite with. Now, moving towards Alpha Centauri B from the Interstar Highway, we can have a look at the planets that orbit the star. There are a total of 6 planets orbiting the star, from Dionysus, New Jupiter, New Caprica, Aries, Defiance, and New Solaris. Going from the most outer planets, we have Dionysus. Now, Dionysus is a dwarf planet, and was used to hide the Confederate Remnant fleet just after the Great War from the alien threats. This allowed them to build up their strength and recapture New Solaris in the year 2179, 14 years after the fall of the Confederation. Then we have New Jupiter. New Jupiter, like its namesake, is a large gas giant at the edge of the system, containing much in the ways of thorium and fuel reserves, and is of vital interest to any military or logistical operations going forward. We then have Aries. Aries, being the third most outer planet, is considered one of the most important. Currently ruled by the Aries technocracy, which named itself after the planet, it is essentially their homeworld. It contains significant mineral reserves and was one of the biggest colonies pre-Great War, before it unfortunately was destroyed in large part thanks to the invaders, which came and absolutely obliterated many of humanity's population centers. But it still remains, and it has made a rebound back over the last 15 years in some regards. Then we have New Caprica. New Caprica was a planet that was too large for inhabitants, even though it had a perfect atmosphere, and it almost seemed like a dream come true for many of the Confederate citizens. Unfortunately, due to its gravitational situation, thanks to its large diameter and mass, there was no potential for colonizing New Caprica. But some orbital habitats may still remain, and the planet is considered still of vital importance due to the vast mineral reserves found earlier in the Confederation's history. Next to New Caprica is New Solaris. Now, New Solaris is one of the most important, if not the most important planet in the entire Alpha Centauri system. The homeworld of the original Confederation, and now the homeworld of practically every single civilization currently in the system, and those without it. It is of both political importance, heritage, cultural, and military importance. It is the largest population center in the system, and it is controlled, as we can see, by the Confederate Remnant, and it is, suffice to say, an extremely important hub of trade, military power, but it has seen better days. During the Great War, it was bombarded heavily, and New Solaris, unfortunately, is not the way it originally was, with only about 150 million people living on the planet from an original population of about 1.5 billion. Next to New Solaris, the most inner planet within the Alpha Centauri B system, we have Defiance. Now, Defiance is a small planet with massive thorium reserves that was originally used to fuel the Confederation's efforts to colonize outside of Alpha Centauri. While it has not been tapped in many years, this is still a potential that could be utilized, and it's important that we think about doing so in the near future. Something else to note while we have a look at Alpha Centauri B is Hope's last stand, or the asteroids/shipwrecks near to New Solaris. These wrecks are of vital importance, actually, because they come from the original Great War, and so they could potentially contain significant amounts of material and technology that could be salvaged. An important thing to note as well regarding all of this is that we may find these wrecks scattered throughout the system. Battles were waged across in desperate attempts by the Confederation to hold back the vastly superior alien forces, and some of those wrecks may still remain if the Ares technocracy has not taken them already. Now, as we zoom back out of the system and have a look at, zoom back out of the Alpha Centauri B system and have a look at the entire system as a whole, you can really tell here that there is a lot of work to do for the Confederate Remnant. The Confederate Remnant has to secure first Alpha Centauri B, and then they have to determine what is happening in Alpha Centauri A and secure that. We've got that work cut out for us, and I hope that the Senate will understand and formulate a plan to be able to reconquer and reclaim these territories. Now we're going to move on to the economic and industrial side of the Confederate Remnant. I hope this has been informative. Let's move on. The Confederate Remnant's economic and industrial situation is quite poor. This situation developed as a result of the circumstances leading to the fall of the original Confederation and was compounded by the fact that the Confederate Remnant only captured New Solaris in 2179, a year ago. So let's look at the situation in detail. First, the industry. We only control the planet of New Solaris, and compared to its former self, it is not an industrial powerhouse, with only 150 million people on the planet. So even if we were to expand our industrial capacity, the population of the planet would hold us back. On the screen, you will see the total installation count and manufacturing sector breakdown, and as you can see, we are currently in a worker shortage and the installations we do have are limited. An important factor to note that is affecting the economy is the atmospheric situation. Due to the years of conflict, the planet's atmosphere has changed significantly, and sulfur dioxide still remains, and due to that, the colony cost of the world is now 2.0, leading to more people being required to keep everyone alive, coupled with a constant need for infrastructure. So while we may have the bare essentials needed for an economy, it is practically in stagnation, and it will be up to the Senate to determine what's the best course of action in regards to our economic growth of our traditional industry. Next up, our financial situation. As stated before, the low population count obviously means not that many people are actually working, and taxes are rather low. But overall, expenditure is not horrible, and a combination of financial centers along with the taxes we do have are allowing us to have not as many financial issues as one may expect. In conclusion, due to the war-ravaged nature of New Solaris, low population counts across all of humanity, the installation, population, and overall industrial capacity that we have is just poor. This will be a major challenge going forward for our faction. Now on to the military situation. As you may know from the prologue, we have a somewhat sizable military force. This is one of the few areas that our faction has done well in, and it is what allowed the recapture of New Solaris. But first, let's focus on our naval situation. It is important to understand before we talk about our navy the unique position it finds itself in. After the Great War, the Remnant had saved a few vessels from before the fall of the Confederation. These vessels are now considered relics, and the Remnant has 3 of them. These are the CSS Resilience, CSS Kelio, and CSS Vantor. These vessels use technology that, compared to the current era, is a bit like magic. They move twice as fast as any vessel due to their use of internal confinement fusion drives, and their firepower dwarfs many current era vessels. The current age technology is around the level of nuclear pulse, so it's a significant difference in comparison. The only issue is that they cannot be rebuilt, and they cannot be in every place at once. It will be up to the player to understand what to do with them, either use them, or they could potentially disassemble them for their technology. On the screen, you will now see the ship designs for these relic warships. You will note the cruiser was originally designed as a PD escort cruiser, and the destroyers hunter-killers. Now that we have seen the best the Remnant has, let's look at the rest of the fleet. These vessels use scavenge tech with a tech level equivalent to around nuclear pulse. The vessels tend not to be very big, but they are cheap to make and fast to produce. First we have the corvettes, the biggest of the non-relic fleet. Their primary purpose is to patrol the border, escort larger ships, and fight in attack wings. There are 2 kinds of corvettes in service, the Eternal Defiance class and the Shield and Guardian class, with a total of 6 corvettes in active service, 4 Eternal Defiance and 2 Shield and Guardian. Their specifications are on screen now. As you can see, the Eternal Defiance vessels are the offensive variant, and the Shield and Guardian class the point defense variant. The last combat vessels of the non-relic fleet are the combat shuttles. These are modified civilian shuttles that are around 1,000 tons. Their primary purpose was to provide significant numbers. They are not expected to win battles, but to assist larger ships in swarming enemy forces. Armed with a small point defense cannon, which can be deadly when enough combat shuttles swarm an enemy, and an on-screen you will see the design. the Angelic Blade class combat shuttle, which is the only variant currently in service, with a total number of those in service at 14. The next important part of the naval fleet are the utility/logistics vessels. These include the survey vessels, troop transports, and more required for moving the army. They also include tankers to move fuel, freighters to ship cargo, and colony vessels to move people. In total, we have 8 troop transports, 4 freighters, 3 survey vessels, 2 tankers, and 2 colony ships. The designs are now on screen. Fairly basic, but they get the job done as required. Now that you have a clear picture of the naval situation, on screen there will be a full list of all active naval vessels that you can reference for what we are starting with. Now, let's move on to the ground component of the Confederate military. The Confederate Ground Army, while the most elite in the system, are a shadow of their former selves, with the entire army being at most the size of a single division. The ground forces are split into 2 different sections: the militia, which are lower quality troops designed to help keep order and peace as well as to protect world when the standardized army can't, and the standard army, which is made up of elite troops commanded by veterans of the Great War. As we go through each formation, the states for the units within them will appear on screen, as well as the formation composition. So for the militia, there are a total of 12 militia groups on the Solaris, and these groups are individually made up of a total of 1,600 infantry using light armor and light personnel weapons. They are generally pretty weak, but extremely cheap. Next, we have the primary army. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So the primary army, which is division-based, or division-sized, is made up of 3 infantry regiments. Inside each regiment, there is 4 infantry battalions, and a single combat engineer battalion also supports the infantry regiment. The army also contains 2 heavy support groups made up of medium tanks and self-propelled artillery vehicles. These formations are independent of the infantry regiments. And in terms of quality, the infantry regiments contain the best soldiers and are made up of mortar teams, anti-tank, medium machine guns, as well as the standard army troopers equipped with medium armor and personal weapons. In total, the ground forces sit at around 230 kilotons, and while it is a considerable force for the era we are in, the Senate may decide that more will be needed if the goals of uniting humanity are to come to fruition. Hopefully, after watching this video, you should be well informed on the situation the Confederate Remnant finds itself in, as well as decided if you want to join in or not. I hope to see you guys on the Discord and join in on the adventures of the Confederate Remnant in its goal to reunite this shattered empire. And special thanks to members Alter Ego 1101, King Strozer, Lewis Neto, Impassive 9001, Gravmania, Fishik, Panit Renito, Alex Roberts, Doodle SM, Death himself, Clef S, and Zalvin. Thanks for all your guys' support. We're able to keep the channel going, and I hope to see you guys next time.